In this lesson, we will be reviewing Autodesk Inventor's viewing tools. In this case, we're going to start off looking at the tools that are available on the standard toolbar, and we'll go from left to right. The very first tool is called Zoom All. The shortcut is the Home key. By selecting that, Autodesk Inventor will zoom up on all the geometry that's in that window and it will become centered. The next tool is Zoom Window. By selecting Zoom Window, you're going to define 2 points, define a rectangle, and Autodesk Inventor will zoom up onto that selected rectangle. I can return back to the previous view by either pressing the F5 key or right mouse click and select Previous View. The next option is Zoom. By selecting Zoom, the icon on the screen will represent how we're going to zoom. I'm going to press down the left mouse button and move my cursor down. I will zoom up. If I move my mouse up, I will move back and away from the part. I'm going to press the Escape key to cancel out of that tool. The other way to zoom, if you have a wheel on your mouse, spin your wheel towards you and it'll get larger. Spin it away and it'll get smaller. The next tool is Pan. In Pan, what we're going to do, just hold down your left cursor or left mouse button, and as you move it on the screen, the geometry will pan with it as well. The other way to do this, I'm going to press the Escape key, just press down the wheel on your mouse to pan very, very quickly. The next tool is Zoom Selected. By selecting Zoom Selected, I can select on a specific face, object, or entity. In this case, I selected on the shaft and it zoomed back up on that shaft. Let's do that one more time. Let's take a look at Zoom Selected here. In this case, I selected on that face and it zoomed up on that face. I'm going to press the F5 key a couple times to return to our previous view. The next option is going to be the Rotate. So with the Rotate, we have a circle that will appear with 4 lines. Inside, if you just move your cursor in there and take it and move that cursor, the geometry will follow the rotation of your cursor. If you move the cursor outside, it will appear back to an arc with an arrow. And now at this point, if I hold down the left mouse button, you can rotate around the center point. If you select on one of the vertical lines, you will rotate the geometry horizontally. If you select on one of the horizontal lines, you will rotate your geometry vertically. Another tip here, as you're starting to rotate right in the center, you can reorientate what it's going to rotate about by just selecting your left cursor or pressing the left mouse button, and it will recenter it. So now as I rotate it around, it'll spin it around that selected point. As you move your cursor outside that circle, it will go to just a straight horizontal arrow. Just select on that and that will finish off that tool. There's another option with the Rotate. If you press the spacebar or right mouse click, and you can select on Common View, and we get what's referred to as a glass box. With this glass box, you can select the different arrows and your view will change accordingly. When I get to looking at a plan view, you can also move your cursor over one of the edges and you can rotate the geometry or your view in 90-degree increments. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to right-click Done or press the Escape key, and let's look at the next tool, and it's the Look At tool. And what the Look At tool is going to allow me to do is select on a given face, and the geometry will rotate, so I'm going to look plan at that. So with the Look At tool, you can select any planar face in the graphics window, or you can also select the Look At tool and select through the browser any one of your work planes that you may have here or a sketch. I'm going to switch to an isometric view right now. Easiest way to do that is you can right click, press the isometric view option, or press the F6 key. We'll switch you back to an isometric view. So the last three that we're going to look at now are going to be the shading options for starters. So with the shaded display, we have three options. Shaded display is we're seeing right here. I also have a hidden edge option. As I zoom back up on that, you can see that I'm seeing all of the edges that are behind the specific geometry that we're looking at here. And we can also look at it in a wireframe display. So if I zoom back, you can see that I'm seeing all the way through that. This can be changed if you only want to see in front of it. Go back to your Tools, Application Options, and under the Display tab, we have options here to control that wireframe. I could turn on depth dimming. Let me move this over so we can see it. And down at the bottom here where it says 80%, we can change that. And you can see the geometry that's a little bit further behind will be a little bit dimmer. If I say dim the hidden edges, let's see what that looks like. A little bit dimmer in the background here. And of course you could change this to 100% if you don't want to see any edges that are hidden. So that's entirely up to you, exactly what you're seeing as you do rotate your model. So in this case, I'm bringing up that glass box again. I'm just going to press the space bar to get rid of that. The lines update real time. So I'm going to switch us right back here to the shaded display. And let's look at the next option. So the next option is parallel and perspective. So in this case, we're looking at parallel, meaning that if you have two lines that are parallel, they will view themselves parallel infinitely. And that's what we're seeing here on the screen. I can also change that to perspective. For the perspective view, we're going to change it to an isometric view first, so get a little different view of this. So now in my isometric view, let's take a look at changing the perspective. I'm going to hold down the Control and Shift key. And by holding down the Control and Shift key and take your wheel, and as I spin the wheel, I will change the perspective to basically moving the camera either closer or further away. So for the rest of these videos, however, we will be working in a parallel view perspective here. Let's take a look at our last options, and these are going to be shadows. So the very first one is the default, no ground shadow. The second is ground shadow. So when I do that, if I pan the model over, you'll see that the shadow is moving. If I rotate it, real time, that shadow is updating. And the last option that we have here is X-ray ground. With X-ray ground, as I again rotate my perspective, you'll see that the shadow is real-time updating. So for the rest of these lessons here, we will be working with no ground shadow. This concludes the lesson on Inventor's viewing tools.